There's quite a comparison coming up in the next 3 videos. Today I'm flying to Paris from Shanghai on China Eastern's 777 in the bulkhead of the mini forward cabin. Then I'll fly on an American 777 in the bulkhead of the mini forward cabin. Then I'll fly on a British Airways 777 in, altogether now, the bulkhead of the mini forward cabin. Incredibly, when I booked this trip, I never put this together in my mind, but it provided for an eye-opening experience, being able to essentially fly the exact same seat, all 3 of them being reverse herringbone, on the largest airline in China, the largest airline in the US, and the largest airline in the UK. So we shall see who reigns supreme. By the way, if you're ever curious about the price that I paid for this flight, or the equipment that I use on a daily basis while traveling and creating, all of that can be found in the description below. Let me welcome any of you that might be new to the channel. My name is Kevin. Over the last 5 years, I've flown over 130 airlines, so I could bring you my self-funded, drama-free, and honest takes on them all. Not to mention the over 200 hotels and resorts that I've reviewed so far. Scan the QR code to explore the destinations I've covered and learn more about the channel. Without further ado, let's get flying. Welcome to Shanghai Pudong International Airport, the larger of Shanghai's 2 airports and the busiest airport in China by both the number of flights and the number of passengers that it served in 2024, coming in at over 76 million. The really interesting bit about it though is how much the airport grew in 2024 versus the year prior. While the next 9 largest Chinese airports grew an average of 18% year over year, Shanghai Pudong grew 41% year over year. I'm interested to see what their final numbers for 2025 will be. So the largest airport, flying on the largest airline. And when I say largest airline, right now I'm talking about by daily flights. Ironically though, this airport does feel pretty small at times. You can see it's sprawling, but it's also divided up in such a way airside that it doesn't feel all of that large. With my 7-hour layover, I was actually looking forward to going to the airside airport hotel, which many online sources described as, existing. I even had directions to get there that were screenshotted on my phone. Well yeah, it doesn't exist. Or at least you can't access it from where I was. So I headed to the lounge, which wasn't open yet. So cue the aimless walking around now. After around 45 minutes, the lounge opened. On the ground floor, there's a seating area and the primary spot to get food and drinks. There's also a secret upstairs area, which is at least 3 times the size. And actually, it's not a secret, but by the time I left the lounge 6 hours later, the ground floor was jam-packed, and the upper floor was still 95% empty. There are no sleeping areas or rooms, But there is this lounge room right next to the escalators, so you can enjoy a nap while dozing off to "Please hold the handrail." After a full tour of the lounge, as in camping out in 3 different areas of the lounge for a few hours each, I headed to get a pager for a shower, which took around 30 minutes to be buzzed. Inside, they were nice and clean. Okay, time to head to the gate. China Eastern has over 650 aircraft in its fleet, with almost 200 more on order, and among the major carriers has one of the youngest fleets out there with an average age of around 8 years. They were the global launch customer of the Chinese-built C919 in 2023, and they have a subfleet of A350s with individual suites, essentially the same seats that Delta Airlines has on their A350s. I almost booked this flight to Cairo instead just to get on those new seats, but in the end realized Paris is far more logical to get to New York. Our gate was changed and then we were delayed by a bit, but nothing too serious. China Eastern is the 6th largest carrier by number of flights globally and maintains a robust domestic network in addition to their international destinations. They have 4 primary hubs, 7 secondary hubs, and an additional 13 focus cities in their network. If you're enjoying the video and would like to support the channel, there are many ways that you could do so. A quick like on the video and subscribe helps with the algorithm, or you could check out my Patreon linked in the description below. On Patreon, I post everything from early access or Patreon-only videos, to newsletters, my best tips and tricks to save money on travel, glimpses behind the scenes, detailed advanced itinerary maps, and much, much more. Think of it as a toolbox to save money on or simply improve your next trip, especially if it's in Southeast Asia. If you have specific questions about your upcoming trips, I can help with that too. Whatever you do though, thanks very much for doing it. Here's our 9-year-old 777-300ER. Boarding was via a dual jet bridge, and the reason that I was able to sit in the mini cabin on the 3 flights that I mentioned is because all 3 of these aircraft have first-class cabins. Very odd to see though that China Eastern has only installed 6 seats in a space that is essentially made for 8. Here's my seat for the next 11 or 12 hours. Much shorter than any Western airline would make the flight in, since Chinese carriers of course fly over Russia. This is the primary reason why finding European carriers to Shanghai these days is like finding a rare precious gemstone in the wild. This is an older version of the reverse herringbone type of seat. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is the original type offered on the 777s. I flew the same seat on EVA Air's 777s. Not a problem with the age though, since the seats were in pristine condition and have all of the same bells and whistles as most newer generation seats do. Unlike the Super Diamond reverse herringbone seats, which British Airways has, with a few closed storage areas, here there are multiple sizable open storage areas and a large window side table, which is a convenient way to watch your own content while eating your meals. Cold towels and non-alcoholic drinks were passed around, and the cabin was prepared for departure. This being the bulkhead, the seat benefits from a much wider footrest, making for a more comfortable sleeping position. Unfortunately, no overhead air vents though, which was a little bit of a problem. I found this mini cabin to be considerably warmer than the full cabin behind during the flight. If you prefer cooler, head to the back. I would not fly the same seat again on China Eastern. Speaking of in the back, the business class cabin had a solid 5 rows of empty seats, and the crew were actively making announcements during boarding, offering paid upgrades to economy passengers.
Now we are ready for departure. Please fasten your seatbelt.
Let's take a look at what's on board, starting off with the insane amount of reading material. This was all at each seat. The pillow is a nice size and very springy, made for a good nap later on. The blanket, like the pillow, are a nicer quality than the shorter flight from Singapore, though all of the options were pretty good. And finally, another pair of slippers for this flight. The service started around 30 minutes after takeoff with the drink service and a fruit and nut mix. Service on this flight was way more attentive than my previous one, and just generally very well rounded. All crew spoke excellent English, something mainland carriers weren't known for in the past. The level of service was much closer to the likes of Cathay and Thai Airways than I was expecting. Here's the full menu, for my flight at least. China Eastern uses one of the color-coded menus which are used for the full year with 4 options. The menu is actually 24 pages in total, just for food. The first meal was lunch and started off with spicy tuna with an itty-bitty marinated octopus and garnished with golden squash. With this came the soup. For that, there was a choice between beef and potato soup or black bone chicken soup with black fungus and lotus seed. I went with the beef, which was surprisingly pretty good, though I did need to kind of chug it as we hit a bit of turbulence. A selection of breads were passed around, and then the main course came. There were 4 choices: pan-fried salmon, braised pork cartilage, braised beef cubes and tendon, or braised abalone. Braised being the theme of the day. Airline code for covered in sauce so you won't know if it's dry or not. I chose the beef with tendon, and it was actually really good, especially the tendon. For dessert, there was an orange opera cake, ice cream, or fruit. I was really hoping for more of that Belgian chocolate ice cream, but this time was just boring vanilla. Overall, it was a really good and very efficient meal service. I'd go for an auspicious 8.8 out of 10. Entertainment on board was varied, with plenty of movies or TV shows on offer, along with a moving map. There was also Wi-Fi available, but whether scanning my boarding pass or entering my details manually, I could never get it to connect. The headphones were the same cheap ones from the previous flight. Time for a bit of rest. The seat in full flat mode made for a very comfortable bed. There was no mattress cover, but the blanket was plenty big to cover you full length. There were also some pretty snazzy pajamas available by request. We had quite a bit of turbulence and at one point turned to fly due east for a while before getting back on course. I was just happy that I still didn't have a bowl of hot soup with me at that time. The bathrooms on board are minimally stocked, but incredibly clean and remain that way throughout the flight. You can see that not too many people took them up on their upgrade offer. Before the second meal, let's take a look at the amenity kit on board. It's a nicely designed pouch with the bare essentials inside. Not too much on offer, but I prefer these to the cheap L'Occitane kits that lots of mainland carriers used to offer just by default. Okay, time for the second meal service, served around 7 hours into the flight. This one is a weird one. This was written as a light meal. We started off with green salad with bacon and cheese, and now we're gonna stay here for a bit. When I looked at this lettuce, or this vegetation on my plate, I noticed all of the condensation spots all over, and I just assumed it had accidentally been frozen, and now was thawing. But it hadn't. It was warm to the touch. The leaves had the texture of really thick fresh sage. And the stem. What on earth is that stem? Is it from Earth? Does it bite back? Again, those are not water droplets, and they don't, for lack of a better term, pop. I lived in Asia for over a decade, and I have never seen whatever this vegetable is. Does anybody know the name and why it looks like this? I reckon this could inspire a new phobia of blistered vegetables. For the main, there were again 4 choices: mushroom and sole fish roll, braised pork ball, stir-fried beef with mushroom, or braised duck. I went with the pork ball, which turned out to be really good. Essentially a big, lightly packed meatball served with vegetables and rice. There was also a small fruit plate. So I'm just gonna judge the main dish here at a 7.2 out of 10. After 3 more hours of iPad content, there was another small meal on offer. I was given the choice of a duck sandwich, egg congee, or fried fish noodle. Until this day, a duck sandwich was something that I'd never heard of, except for the one that I used to serve at my restaurant, so I had to try that one out. I mean, it was fine. It was soft and savory, and frankly, could have been turkey or literally any other meat had I not known better. Let's say 7 out of 10. Soon after that, and a few more cups of coffee, we were descending into a cloudy Paris. So, China Eastern. I could be a little off here, but just hear me out. I get the feeling that China Eastern is to China, as American Airlines is to the US. The more generic experience of the 3 main carriers, and also the largest. In that same thought, I do think it's safe to say that China Southern is the Delta of the bunch. Perhaps a little bit more premium. And that leaves Air China. I flew with them many times before COVID, and from my experience back then, they do kind of fit with United as well. That said, I would fly China Eastern again in a heartbeat. They're really comfortable with great service. Food, decent. 7 is their well-deserved spot. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this trip report today. If you did, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time from Madrid on American Airlines in, well, the same seat. Definitely not the same experience though. As always, thanks for watching until the end.